All right. Well, uh, as we start today, it's going to be a really exciting day where we're going to learn to take our big goals and dreams and turn them into habits that we can implement every day to start living the life of our dreams. So, uh, I want to go ahead and start with something to get your juices flowing and get your mind going and settle into where we are today. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of a prompt, a journal prompt, like I said. And then if you can do that quick, just journal what's one habit that you wish you could stick to that could change your life. So I want to tell you that while we're on today, by all means, excuse me, uh, feel free to share. You can share in the chat, but also, if you want to raise a hand and put your camera on and turn your mic on, by all means, share, in person or in the chat. Either way is totally fine here. There's no rules. Everything is set to be as you want it to be so that you get the most out of it today. Um, Nicole, you got follow up and follow through consistently. So that's a great one as we're going to work on today. There is a lot that's in action as well as follow through and creating a process or a system that allows you to do that and to focus really in on your big goals so you're following through with consistency. Anyway, and take just a minute. I'll give you a minute to think. I'll be quiet. Give you a moment to think. What's one habit you wish you could stick to that would change your life? Yep, Nikita, you got follow up for me too. Yep. Yeah, Alicia, keep my clean house. With five kids, I hear you on trying to keep a clean house. Eat healthy, Denise, definitely. Get sleep and eating healthy, both great ones. And we will work on each of those today. You'll see similar things. I've improved drastically by tracking my habits, which we'll see in a little bit. All right. Thank you so much for sharing those. And self-care, that's a big topic I talk about in my book, Light in the Mirror, and stick to the planned calendar of block times and focus. Uh, yeah, that's a great one, Nicole, too. And it's great to do those block times earlier in the day and get them done and out of the way and stick to them. Because once you've handled those big blocks of time earlier in the day, all the little stuff can be done later. So we want to focus on the big stuff first. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing those. Those a lot of those things, we see consistently, relating to, I put in there consistent yoga and exercise. It's the one area in my habit tracker that I track my habits and I don't necessarily get to, the number of times I hope to a week. I mean, I'd like to get that daily. I'm still there, at a couple times a week or a few times a week, but I'd like to get that to be daily and ready to practice what I teach. Yeah, I'm working on that too. You'll see I have been holding myself accountable because a lot of the stuff I'm teaching, I want to make sure I practice as well. So another great way to implement is to teach what you're learning. All right. So as we move forward now, I just want you to take a moment. I want everyone, we have a lot of people have joined us over the last few minutes. Let's just take a moment to get grounded and be fully present. Our daily life just moves so quickly on, email and text and social media and all the things that we have to do that we don't necessarily take time to just be fully present. So let's try to be fully present here now. So if you can, we're going to take just a minute to do this. This isn't, tough. Don't, get turned off by the exercise. Instead, this is a really practical way to be fully present. So if you can, either close your eyes or if that's not comfortable for you, just drop your gaze down low. Let your eyelids hang heavy and just be fully present. We're going to take a few deep breaths. So go ahead and start. You want to take a deep breath in and then hold it at the top for a couple seconds and then release it. So go ahead and take deep breath in, hold it for a couple seconds, 1, 2, and sigh it out. One more of those. Breathe into a count of 4. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold it at the top and sigh it out. All right, one more deep breath in. One, two, three, four. Now hold it at the top. One, two, three, four. And sigh it out. Let it all go. Let all that noise of the day and all the things going on just go. And now take just another 30 seconds and just return to your natural breath. Don't really think about anything. Just focus on the air coming in and going out. Feel the air maybe at the tip of your nostrils or that little space between the bottom of your nose and the top of your lip. Just let the air come in and go out and just breathe in through the nose, feeling it for about 30 seconds. All right. Start, opening your eyes, bring some awareness back. And I hope that you feel a little bit lighter, a little bit more present, and ready to go here. So, if you've struggled to stay consistent with your goals, we saw that theme a lot in what people said, whether it's, sleep, exercise, follow through, uh, you're not falling short in life. You've just been trying to force a version of success that wasn't necessarily aligned with who you truly are. So today we're going to reset that and we're going to rebuild from your true self. So the flow for today, the overview that I want to give you is that we're going to cover four primary things. First, why most goals fail. Second, how to set the right goals. Third, how to build supportive habits, habits that'll align with who you truly are. And then lastly, how to get back up when life throws you off your routine. So, like I said earlier, feel free to share and, also put things in the chat or raise your hand. So, uh, let's go ahead and get going here. I just want to say, start with a quote that I really like by Napoleon Hill, who said, "Desire is the starting point for all achievement, not a hope, not a wish, but a keen, pulsating desire which transcends everything." So if you have a desire to make this your best year ever and move past all that has held you back from living in complete happiness and bliss, then we're going to turn that desire into action today. We're going to mold that burning desire for love and happiness and success into real action that you can take today to live the life of your dreams. We're going to do this by aligning your dreams with your habits. So, how do I know this works? I know this works because I've been on this journey over the last 7 years, and it took me a ton of trial and error, as well as dedicated learning, to get to a point where my big goals and my daily habits are aligned so that I can live the life of my dreams every day. Like I mentioned, with 5 kids ranging from 3 to 16 and running 2 businesses, I've had to be focused and disciplined to ensure that we can all live happily and be productive. And I decided over 7 years ago that I wanted to figure out why I wasn't achieving what I hoped to achieve, why I was looking in the mirror with disappointment and not seeing the joyful and successful person that I had hoped to be. Now, I'm going to save you some time and years worth of learning and mistakes to become who you're meant to be, to live the life of your dreams now. Does that sound good? All right. Don't worry. This isn't hard. It just requires a system that works for you. I know it can seem overwhelming to implement new habits, but in the system that we've created, it makes it easy and flows logically. So I mentioned earlier what we're going to cover here. And the first thing we're going to cover here in part one is why goals fail. So at the beginning of the year, we held an inspiring 8-week course, which we called Thrive in 25, to kick off the year right by implementing our big goals. And at the beginning of that course, I shared with the professionals, entrepreneurs, and parents that joined us from around the world that one of my heroes had just posted on January 1st of 2025, on New Year's Day. Chad Willardson. He's an entrepreneur and an author. He shared some of his goals, or he shared not his goals, but a statistic on goals. He said that less than 9% of adults achieve one New Year's goal. So we want you to be in that 9%, not the 91% of folks who don't achieve a goal. And some of the common reasons that goals don't stick and that people set these resolutions and goals at the beginning of the year and then less than 10% of people actually achieve them, it's staggering how many people don't hit their goals. So, common reasons that they don't stick are for first, an unclear vision. That vision for the goal isn't clear. Second, external pressures or distractions. Third, an unrealistic pace. So you may set some really big goal and you might be able to hit that in 3 years, but setting it for an annual goal, you're setting yourself up for failure, meaning you can't possibly get there in a year. So unrealistic pace. And the last one is lack of alignment, meaning lack of alignment with your true self, with who you're truly meant to be. And that's one of the biggest ones. So I want to introduce you to a quote by Robert Brault, who said, "We're kept from our goal, not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal." So we're always taking detours. And these people here on the bridge there probably saw a sign as they were heading to the mountain that said, "Great view." So they headed over to look at the great view instead of heading for the mountain. So we're always kept by our goals, not by obstacles, but by a clear path to lesser goals. These folks kept going to the top of the mountain, and the view is even better from there. They weren't distracted by that sign that said, "Great view this way." They knew that they wanted to get to the top of the mountain, and that sign wasn't going to get them to the top of the mountain. So in looking now, we're always taking detours and getting off the highway to our dreams and not quite getting to the summit. Not because it's too hard or too far, but because we're distracted by what's right in front of us. Does scrolling through news or social media get you to your goals faster? No. It just fills your brain with negative inputs of others, wastes your time, and takes your mind off of what matters. Does a drink or joint or a gummy get you awake early and excited about your goals and dreams? No. It numbs your emotion and your dreams, so you put them off for another day. It slows you down on your journey. This drive, though, is the drive of your life. And our addictions to the phone, alcohol, drugs, and the negative news stream are causing us to get in a tragic accident. These distractions take our focus from what truly matters, from our goals and dreams, and from our loved ones. That dependence takes us from truly achieving who we're meant to be. So you want to focus on this drive of your life. You don't want to run off the road. So I love another quote. You'll hear me say, I love quotes because they've inspired me to action over the years. And I've taken a lot from learning and want to share with you. Blaise Pascal, the famous French mathematician and inventor, said, "Distraction is the only thing that consoles us from our miseries. And yet, it is itself the greatest of our miseries." Look, we all have certain vices and bad habits that we want to overcome. And a lot of those habits turn into dependence and addiction. And we may not even recognize that dependence as a problem, like, the news or phone scrolling. We just think we're, doing what we're supposed to do in modern life. But it still may take us from our natural state. And when we're taken from our natural state, we don't operate at our best. And when you operate at your best, you're putting good food and drinks into your body and feeding your mind positive content. And when we're not, we're numbing ourselves with all those things that I talked about. But to get into a peak state and live the life of your dreams, we want to address the dependence. So even if you're not distracted by all the modern distractions in life, many of us are kept from our real goals by that clear path to a lesser goal, that smaller project or goal that comes up when someone knocks on your door or sends you an email and says, "Hey, can you jump onto this?" And you do, you dive in, you handle it, and you feel some sense of accomplishment, that small hit of accomplishment because you took care of something. But what happened was it really delayed your real goal, your big goal for the year. That's why people don't hit those goals. Your true self knows that. and your inner voice calls to you to achieve your big goals. And you may experience some success, but it's not the real success your true self requires of you. So misaligned goals create confusion and burnout. So when you lack clarity of your goals, when you lack clarity, your nervous system can't trust the direction, and you end up getting burnt out working on all this other stuff that isn't focused and aligned with who you're meant to be. This is why so many seemingly successful people are not happy. They may be achieving personal and professional success, but they're just accomplishing small daily tasks. They're unhappy because they're not aligning their daily habits with their big goals. I mean, as a lawyer, as a finance lawyer, I was seemingly successful to folks, but I was just handling a bunch of menial tasks every day. And it wasn't aligned with my true self. So, inside, seemingly successful people, maybe unhappy because they're not aligning their daily habits with their big goals. And that creates confusion and leads to burnout. And your nervous system and your brain feel they can't trust the direction you take when you're just, going in on the hamster wheel, when you're just going through the motions. So you can go one way that you need to go, or you can go another direction, but that creates anxiety and confusion. But clarity brings confidence, and confidence is contagious, both for yourself and for others. And another reason why goals fail, even if they are clear, is that the clear goal isn't aligned with your true self. Gandhi said, "We shut our ears to that still small voice inside us." And what he's saying is that when you listen, you know what to do. We need to listen to ourselves. Truly listening to our inner voice and our higher power propels us into our future with clarity. We all have a small voice from within that speaks to us about wanting an amazing life, nudges us to our personal and professional dreams, and clamors for love and happiness. I want you to give a megaphone to that still small voice inside. That is your true self directing you where to go. Goals that are not aligned with your true self create confusion and burnout, and that leads to anxiety. But when you're clear on your goals and they're aligned with your true self, you can live the life of your dreams. So let's start getting into, now that we've discussed why goals fail, let's start making your goals work. So first, I want to do a little journal exercise. So take out that pen and piece of paper again, or open up your journal. Think of a goal that you set in the past, but didn't reach. What do you think really got in the way? So think of a goal you set in the past, but didn't reach. And what do you think really got in the way? And take, maybe 2 to 3 minutes to journal that. And I'll give you a couple minutes to do that, and then we'll get back on, and feel free to share those once you've answered that. So we'll give you about 2 to 3 minutes right now. All right, take maybe just another 30 seconds or so. Start wrapping up, and some folks have already started sharing in the chat, and yeah, if you want to take another few seconds to wrap that up. All right. Uh, let's get back. So we've just thought about, goals we may have set in the past, but that we didn't get to. So that, that's that 91% of folks who report annually, not hitting a goal or not even setting any goals. So uh, now we want to start talking about aligning goals with our true self. But by all means, share. Didn't know how to move forward when the roadblock happened. Okay, that's a great one, Nikita, and we're actually going to cover that at the end. So in section 4, the last section today, we're going to discuss how to get back up or how to stay focused and get back when we fall off our routine or roadblocks happen. So they always happen. I mean, they happen all the time. You'll hear me talk a little bit about it later, but I had major roadblock or major issue recently. My wife ruptured her Achilles tendon, complete rupture, unable to walk, had surgery, 2 weeks after it happened, and just got the cast off yesterday. She's still fairly immobile in a boot, but with 5 kids, it was a huge, huge struggle. So we'll talk about roadblocks in a little bit. I'll share, a goal of mine that I didn't reach was based on starting this new company that we started called OhmGrid back in 2020. And we had set a goal of getting, really high number, tens of thousands of customers within a short period of time. And when we talk, there were two major factors of the reasons goals fail, that it failed for me. And, one was it wasn't aligned with my true self. As you'll see today, being an author and inspiring you is my true self. That's what I've known I've been, called to do for decades, but I put it off, being a lawyer and then energy entrepreneur. So it wasn't aligned with my true self. And secondly, it was an unrealistic pace. We were going to try to get way too many customers in too short a period of time. So like it was, destined to fail from the beginning. Because we weren't setting it up to scale. So yeah, we'll talk about the roadblocks in a little bit. And Nicole did mention her blog, and both mindset and external factors got in the way. So we'll talk about the habits that might make that that a little bit easier if you want to get back to that. So that may help a lot in that. Anyone else want to share of a goal that you didn't reach and what you think got in the way? And again, you can always raise your hand and come off camera and unmute if you want, or leave shares in the chat is fine as well. So now we're going to start talking about the next section, which is aligning your goals with your true self. And finding true alignment. And that's what this workshop's all about today, is aligning habits with your goals and with your big dreams. So, it's good to have good habits, but where are they getting you? Are they aligned with your goals, your dreams, and your true self? You need to know where you're headed. You have to have a direct path, not just implement habits. So like, yes, it's good to get good sleep, and it's good to exercise, and it's good to work on your blog or write a book or, read every day. But, it's also really helpful to have goals of where you're getting, be inspired by that. So you want to align your goals, your dreams, and your true self. And you need to know where you're headed. So you need to start by setting big, big goals. So we're going to start by going big. Where do you want to be in 10 years or in 20 years? Don't worry about where you are right now. It doesn't really matter if you're 30 or 50 or 70. Founder of the global advisory firm, it's called Strategic Coach. The guy's name's Dan Sullivan. He set a 25-year plan to at age 75 to go even bigger in his personal and professional life in his business. And that's what excites him. So there's no end to what you can achieve at any age. And he'll probably live to 100 to see it through because that's what excites him. So you have to go bigger. With 5 kids and running a 17-year-old business, was it smart for me to start in a new direction of, as an author and doing courses and workshops and retreats? Like, I don't know, but I'm excited by it. And I set a long-term goal for it. And I love every minute of it. And I can see clearly for the next 10 years and beyond. So what's your big, hairy, audacious goal? What seems absolutely outrageous to others, but in your heart is what you need now? That's your North Star. It's the direction that you need to head. Who do you want to be in 10 years? We're going to start working backwards from 10 years out and then down to 3 and then to this year, this quarter, and this month. And then the daily habits that bring those goals to life. I know it sounds obvious, but they all link. Your 10-year goal links to your daily habits, not just setting something and being like, gosh, I hope I get there, or I can see it. How do I get there? We're going to tell you how you get there today. When setting long-term goals, big, let's just call it your 10 or 20-year vision for yourself. Are you the same person that you are today that you were 10 years ago? No, almost everyone says no. I'm a much different person today than I was 10 years ago. But yet, when we set goals, meaning planning for the future, we do it as though we'll be ourselves that we are today, but just a little bit older. People, sometimes just envision themselves, just a little bit grayer, a little bit balder, or a little bit more wrinkled. But it's not the case. You're personally a very different person. You'll be a totally different person in 10 years. And so there's a concept called perspection, which is the ability to mentally represent and evaluate possible futures, not just be yourself, but older. So it's a fundamental psychological skill that includes planning, prediction, and imagining future scenarios. When we envision future scenarios, we limit ourselves to what we know now. But there are no limits. Our goal in this workshop is to open our minds to think without limits. So when I was just 27, I was in my second year of law school, and it was right before the end of the second year in law school. And I was standing in the kitchen, and my left leg felt a little warm. Like I looked down to see if maybe like the dog just peed there, or maybe there was a pipe I hadn't noticed before, hot water pipe under the floor, but there was nothing there. And that night I went to sleep, my left leg started twitching every couple seconds. And within 2 days, I lost the ability to lift my left foot. And 2 days later, I couldn't hold a pen or type with my right hand, which is sort of essential for law school exams. And my body was spinning and my body was deteriorating. I'd just been elected class president and editor-in-chief of Law Journal. My bright future was quickly dimming. Now, MRI showed that I had lesions on my brain and my spinal cord. And this was the onset of multiple sclerosis. And at just 27, I thought, am I going to die? Like, what on earth is happening? But luckily, my dad, who's a physician, told me, I'm not going to die right now, but that this could get worse. I'm like, how's, not being able to walk properly or write going to get any worse? But our body is miraculous, though. And it heals itself when we care for it properly. And thank God, I've now gone almost 19 years without another MS flare-up. Now, I did have 2 additional MS flare-ups after the initial ones when I overdid it as a young lawyer. And I lost vision in each of my eyes due to lesions of my optic nerves. But, I learned that it was due to lack of sleep and stress. I wasn't taking care of my body. I was, pulling all-nighters on the regular, and my nervous system was telling me to slow the heck down. But, our body heals itself when we care for it properly, and you have to listen to that inner voice when it tells you to slow down. Just like you have to listen when it tells you to get up and run into your future. Now, I wasn't listening to that still small voice inside, during that period of time of being a young lawyer and then an entrepreneur. I was just running in circles, hoping for things to get better. As a new parent back, 17 years ago and running a business and, being a lawyer, I kept constantly going in circles and being on that hamster wheel. And for years, I saw sad eyes looking back at me in the mirror, wondering why I hadn't hit my potential. I knew I wasn't living as my true self. And 2 decades went by where I wasn't listening to my inner voice. But in the summer of 2018, I have a complete awakening. I decided I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I decided to work on improving myself and listening and growing again. And that's what that 7 year journey has taken me to extraordinary places and brought me to a place of deep personal alignment with my true self and my personal and professional and spiritual goals. And once I saw the light in the mirror, it dawned on me. I meant to inspire others. And that's what my true self is meant to do. That's what that still small voice inside had been telling me for decades. That's why I saw sad eyes looking at the mirror for so many years. Because living as a lawyer and then clean energy entrepreneur isn't living as my true self. I'm not making enough impact every day. Writing books and inspiring you is my true calling. Today, I want you to think about, what is your true calling? From the podium or in a course, I get to use my voice to help others find their voice. And that's why I'm talking to you today, to inspire you to live the life of your dreams, to listen to your inner voice and to set big goals. And we're going to show you the path to get there. But are you listening to that still small voice inside you? And then what is it telling you if you are listening? In the immortal words of Nelson Mandela, who lived fully through struggle and triumph, there is no passion in playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. You are capable of living an extraordinary life. And I want you to aim high and dream big. I want you to live the life of your dreams, which you can do today by living as your true self and setting big goals with a plan to achieve them. Now, how can you do this? First, listen to your inner voice. Second, write down what you hear so that you can set big goals. And then third, implement daily habits that help you live as your future self and achieve your goals. So, as your feet hit the floor tomorrow morning, walk into the bathroom, step in front of the mirror, lock eyes with yourself, and say, I love you. It's that simple. I'm doing that for 7 years now. And then after you say, I love you in the mirror, go spread that light out in the world. The world needs you to be at your best, and we need you now. The world needs you to shine brightly now more than ever. These are challenging times for many. But instead of wondering why you're not hitting your goals, start hitting your goals and spread that light out into the world. And as you awake with intention, put down the phone, stop scrolling, and just listen to that still small voice inside you. What is it telling you? What do you need to do to live the life of your dreams? So you can't live the extraordinary life of your dreams by playing small, by just going through the motions. Don't go through the motions at work. Make your motions work. Setting big goals and daily habits is the beginning of a glorious life, the life that you are meant to live. There's another great quote by a famous architect that says, make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood and probably will not themselves be realized. Daniel Burnham, he said, make big plans, aim high in hope and work. That's why you're here today, to make big plans, to set big goals, and then create a clear path to achieve those goals, followed by the habits that will make your future come true. That's how you're going to thrive in 2025 and beyond. Be bold and be specific. See, big plans are actually easier to achieve than small plans because it limits the number of pathways to get there. Pathways thinking is easier than traditional planning. If you want to be great at something, there are only a few direct actions to get you there. I use an example that I often give, and that is my son loves snowboarding. So if he wants to be a better snowboarder, there's a bunch of things he could do, like watching videos, go snowboarding during the winter, maybe take some lessons. But if he decides that he wants to be in the Olympics for snowboarding, there are only one or two paths to get there. There are only one or two, elite training academies or coaches in the world that could get him there. And he has to stick to a strict practice regimen and train like an Olympic athlete. So by increasing the goal and limiting the scope, he can create a direct pathway to greater success. So my point in that example is be bold and be specific. The famed business strategist Jim Collins said, if you have more than three priorities, you have none. So you can't have more than three priorities or three big goals. Everyone is so scattered, trying to do everything well, that we give everything only our partial attention. So if you want to thrive in 25 and achieve big goals, you have to limit your focus and say no to a lot more. So I'm going to share with you today my method for setting big goals and then aligning them with quarterly and monthly goals and refine those all the way down to daily habits that make realizing your goals inevitable. So at the beginning of each year, I set my big goals for the year, but those goals are aligned with my long-term vision for myself, that 10-year vision that I have for myself and my family, for my personal, professional, and spiritual goals. So I'm aligning my big goals with my long-term vision, and I'm limiting it to only 3 each year. So I can create a clear pathway to get there. So after I've created that pathway of 3 big goals, I then set quarterly goals, meaning the first quarter goals that are going to get me to those big goals. And then I create monthly goals that'll help me get to those quarterly goals. And I update that each month. So that's true alignment, and it's how you bring your goals to life. And then I post those at my desk. So those are actually sitting right here. Here's my goal sheet. And then I also have these taped to my mirror. So I have this set with my 2025 big goals. Now we're at Q3. So I have my quarter 3 goals for July to September, and then my July goals. And I update that each month in each quarter. And I keep them where I can see them, posting them next to my desk in my mirror, in the bathroom, that is. Next, we'll be talking about our daily habits and aligning those with big goals. So remember, there are no more than 3 big goals, and we'll make these available. I think the my goals worksheet I make available, as well as my monthly report where I detail those. So we'll make those available to you. In the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, it's the book that Taoism is based on. It says, in the pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. In the pursuit of the Tao, every day something is taken away. So in pursuit of your goals, do not add more. Instead, take more away. Take more out of your life that keeps you from your big goals and from living the life of your dreams. You got to learn to say no. You got to spend time just on those things that get you to your goal, to that complete bliss where you know you're meant to be. Get rid of the distraction. Make your goals big and simple. Take away all that nonsense that wastes your day. Get rid of the distractions and focus in on your big goals. Find the pathway and then strip away all else. You're going to be able to climb higher than you ever have before once you get to this alignment and you get rid of the distractions. So now that we've talked about big goals, let's journal a little bit and get into, before we start getting the habits, I want you to do a visualization. So we're going to do 2 things here. We're going to do a quick visualization, and then we're going to switch to setting some goals. So first, I want you to envision yourself 10 years from now. That on the other side of this Zoom is yourself 10 years in the future. I want you to do a visualization like we did when we first worked on our breath. I want you to close your eyes or bring your gaze down low if closing your eyes isn't comfortable for you. And I want you to take it says 5 minutes here. Maybe we'll take, 3 or 4 minutes. And I want you to envision meeting yourself 10 years from now. Don't just picture yourself, but older. Picture that person 10 years from now that you know you want to be. What wisdom do they share with you? You can ask them a question. Notice what they're wearing, how they conduct themselves, how they hold themselves, how they seem or appear. What do they tell you they've done or accomplished? How they carry themselves. So take, like I said, 3 or 4 minutes, maybe not quite five, and close your eyes, focus on your breath, and envision meeting your future self 10 years from now. Okay, let's start wrapping that up. Sorry to take you from that blissful state of spending time with your future self, but uh, you were just in 2035 with your future self. Let's come back to 2025 with your current self. And after that visualization, and we don't necessarily have time for it in the course, but it's a great thing to do that you can do on your own. Maybe take a little bit longer and envision meeting yourself, 10 years from now, but also, that's a longer term meditation that you can do. Um, I want you to journal about what that person shared with you. Uh, we're not necessarily going to do it right now, but another thing after that, they're about two or three different things that you can do. Another thing I've done is I've written a letter to myself today from myself in 10 years. So myself 10 years from now writes a letter to me 10 years from now. I have one sitting on my desk that I did a couple years ago. And it's just been such a wonderful exercise for envisioning that life and knowing exactly what I want and who I want to be. And that's listening to your inner voice. That's listening to your true self. And that's who you're meant to be. And so we now want to align big goals with that. So we then want to shorten that period. And you can do this later and do a meditation of meeting yourself 3 years from now. And how does that person seem? What are they wearing? What do they do? I actually did this exercise a few years ago. That person I saw, it was post-COVID when I used to wear suits every day, and then I was in, t-shirts and pajamas every day. And I found that, I envisioned myself even dressing differently. Uh, I wouldn't wear shirts like this. I used to wear a suit every day, and I wasn't going to stay in pajamas anymore. I even started dressing differently because I'd envisioned myself differently. So I want you to try to focus on that as well. So do that 3-year meditation. Now we're going to move to a journal exercise. So take just 2 or 3 minutes here, and I want you to journal. What did your future self show you? And then what are three goals that you can accomplish over the next year that align with your future self, that get you closer to being that person that you envisioned? What are 3 goals that align with your future self? So take just, let's call it 3 minutes here and journal. What did your future self show you? And what are 3 goals that align with your future self? Now, we may be a little bit rushed on time, meaning, if you only have 3 minutes, but spend more time on these after today's workshop. You truly want to, do a longer meditation, envision meeting your future self, journal what your future self showed you, and then 3 goals that align with your future self. So go ahead and take just 3 minutes to journal what your future self showed you and what are 3 goals that align with your future self. Okay, just take another few seconds to work on that. start wrapping up. Now, that version of yourself that you just met, confident and calm and clear, they're not that far away, but they do live on the other side of clarity and aligned habits. And we're going to get into aligned habits in just a minute. And the truth is, you don't think your way into becoming your future self. You have to experience your way into it. And that's exactly why we created the Thrive in 25 course. It's an 8-week immersive experience designed to help you reconnect with your truth and rewire how you show up in the world. So I'll come back to that a little bit later. I mentioned it earlier, but for now, just know it's real and that your future self is waiting for you. So now we want to talk about building the habits that reinforce who you are and who you're meant to be, that align with your big goals. And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where implementing these daily habits help you get to that long-term vision for yourself. And this is the way that you get there. So when I began the regular practice of meditating and journaling 7 years ago, it felt difficult and awkward at first. Meaning I was worried my wife and kids may walk in and think like, what's this crazy guy sitting here, cross-legged, eyes closed. But, I stuck with it and it soon became, natural, heartfelt, and habitual. And now it's a part of my daily life. Habits both good and bad are hard to break. And look, heaven knows I've had my bad habits, like, smoking earlier in life, using weed, or staying up too late. But it's a lot easier to break bad habits when you have good habits and positive reinforcement to break them. The Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, said, chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. So I first started tracking my habits in 2018. And a great quote that I love, it's the one hanging right above my right shoulder here, is by Aristotle. And it says, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." So as you set your big goals, keep your focus by creating positive habits and routines. Awake with intention each day by setting your daily big three priorities the night before, which we'll get into a little bit later in the workshop. But this way, when your feet hit the floor, you know exactly which way to go. These are positive habits that can replace bad habits. Replace bad habits like staying up late and watching Netflix with getting to sleep earlier and not looking at the phone for the last hour before you go to bed and not the first hour of your day. So it's important to get your bearings and start your day with positive routines before you look at the phone. You want to connect with yourself before you connect with everyone else. So excellence is a habit. Again, the Aristotle quote is, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. So by retraining your brain to live a more positive, productive, and happy life, you're more easily able to achieve your goals. Even if you've done the same negative routine for decades, your brain can be reprogrammed through deliberate practice. We are what we repeatedly do. So if you want to see and do things differently, then set new habits and do them repeatedly. It doesn't happen overnight, but with practice, you can retrain your brain for love, happiness, and success. Positive habits are the key to making your dreams and your goals real. To get into a routine of positive habits and start framing up and building your strong house that gets you to your goals, it's worthwhile to track effective habits. So we're now getting into habits and practices that make it easier to transform into that person you're meant to be. There's a quote that says, "You can't improve what you don't measure." So we're going to measure and track that which you want to improve. Track your habits that you want to improve on and make them come to life. You don't need to wait for your future to happen. You can just start being that person you're meant to be now. That person you envision can come to life by implementing habits that person does, but do them now. So it helps to measure and track your progress. So when you listen to your true self, you're able to see your future self and do what that person does. To race towards your future, it's much easier to create and measure the habits that bring you closer to the person you want to be. So everyone struggles with improving themselves and being who they're meant to be. But it doesn't have to be profound and difficult. Just make it simple. The habitually inspired habit tracker that we created is a simple way of tracking up to 10 daily habits. The chart's broken down by week, and I'll share with you my habit tracker if you give me just a second. Here we go. I'll open that up and let me share that. I'm pulling up so I do this on paper, but let me share this with you. So this is what I'm tracking right now. So, uh, I sleep by 10, wake by 5. That way I make sure I get 7 hours of sleep. And I'm also addressing getting to bed earlier and waking up earlier. That way I have enough time in the morning to be able to hit my top priorities. And you're going to track what works for you. I'm just saying, this is what I'm tracking now. Meditate, journal, 1 hour flow on top priority, read spiritual book, read the Tao Te Ching. The reason is I'm writing a book called Lead with Spirit. So that's a part of getting to my goal of publishing my second book. 30 to 60 minutes quality content consumed, exercise or yoga, and PM journal, meaning journaling my wins for the day, the big three things I want to accomplish the next day, and how I want to show up the next day. So I do this on paper. It's actually sitting on my desk right here. So this is from June, and I did it just as an example for a workshop. So I checked some of the boxes there, but I do it on paper on my desk, and we make this habit tracker available to you. And if you notice, there's that quote by Jim Collins, if you have no more than three priorities, you don't have any, as well as my yearly, quarterly, and monthly goals. And I'm making sure that my habits align with my goals that I've set for that year, quarter, and month. So they change a little bit from now and then. You also see there's a column for number of times per week. You don't necessarily have to do all of these things. Like if you want to get to the gym, 4 days a week, then you put 4 times per week, and then, you check those boxes. There's also a place to total your score down there. So you'll also see not every day is perfect either. I don't always get to all of my goals or all my habits every single day. So you just write what habits you want to work on, practice regularly, or improve that are going to help you hit those personal, professional, and spiritual goals. Those things that improve your mind, your body, and your spirit. So maybe you want to track progress on a work goal or a fitness goal. I lost 30 pounds from tracking my intermittent fasting. But for now, you just want to focus on what you want to improve and start tracking it and try to make those habits that will help you achieve your three big goals. Remember, set no more than three. But the habit tracker is a great way to do it on paper or digitally. I just want to remind you though, if you're doing it digitally, try not to use your phone or computer for the first hour you're awake, except to turn off an alarm or maybe play some positive music, or maybe you'll listen to a book while you work out or listen to a guided meditation. But the point is, you don't want to get stuck on an app to track your habits and then switch to checking email or text, because that's a bad habit we've put in place. Orienting your day properly is essential to living a life of joy. Thanks, Chad, for throwing up the habit tracker in the chat so people can access it now. I appreciate that. But you don't want to check email, text, social media, or communicate with anyone other than yourself for the first hour you're awake. I know it's not easy for everyone. Like I said, with 5 kids, I get up at 5 to make sure that I have that hour before my wife and kids are awake. It's just so important to connect with yourself before others. But you don't have to track it. But if tracking that makes sense for you, then track it. So I've been tracking for over 5 years now. And again, the quote, "We are what we repeatedly do." So they change slightly from quarter to quarter based on what I'm working on. So, I used to meditate and journal as soon as I woke up. But when I was writing my last book, Light in the Mirror, that I'm hoping to publish sometime this fall, I added write from 5:30 to 7. So I blocked that first hour and a half of my day for writing instead of meditating and journaling. And that's how I got done with my book in 6 months. And I hit that goal of writing that book. I made that commitment to myself and I hit my goal. So are the habits that I'm tracking right now, are they perfect? No. Do I get to every single one every day? Sadly, no. Life gets in the way. And I miss one or two of my habits or even more. But on the days that I'm at my best, I hit them all. And those days become more frequent the longer I track my habits. I make time for them like my life depended on it because you know what? My future self does depend on it. Because I can't reach my goals if I'm not doing these habits. So as I go along, I have more days at my best and I hit them all more often. So that which is being measured is actually improving. So look, track what works best for you. Look at your goals that you're setting and then see what you need to do to hit those goals and make those areas your daily habits. Like one of the things I didn't go into in depth is, I had 1 hour flow on top priority. Try to schedule 60 to 90 minutes to get your top priority done each day. And try to do that early in the day. There's a great book called Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy about eating the frog, meaning tackling the hardest thing first. Do that tough thing first. And that way the rest of the day is smooth sailing. So, that person you met in the future that you dream of being each day, what does that person do each day? You journaled about that vision of yourself in 10 years, or maybe go back and do it in 3 years. What does your future self do each day that you're not doing now? Pick those things and be that person by practicing each day. And you'll quickly become that person. My life is improving each day because I'm tracking that which matters most to me, and I'm holding myself accountable by tracking it. Now, I do also have an accountability partner that I text my big three priorities for each day. I text them each night, and she texts me. We've been doing that for over 4 years now. And, I talked to you earlier about writing that letter from your future self, that person that you're meant to be. What does that person do each day? Who do you want to become? And really, are you fired up to become that person? Because as Jim Rohn said, motivation is what gets you started. So you got to get started with some motivation and be inspired by setting those big goals. But he also said, habit is what keeps you going. So motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. Look, you're here to thrive and to set big goals. But this year, we're going to accomplish those goals. We're going to be in that 9% of folks that actually achieve their goals once they set them. So we're going to put habits in place that make achieving those goals inevitable. So now we're at the next point where we're going to start creating those habits that are aligned with your future self, with yourself in 3 years or 10 years, or that align with those three big goals that you set. So here we are again, bring out that journal, get your pen and paper ready, and journal. What are 5 to 10 habits that'll help you become your future self in 3 years? What are 5 to 10 habits that will help you become your future self? You want to align those habits with your three big goals that you set earlier that help you get to that future version of yourself. What are 5 to 10 habits that'll help you become your future self? Take, again, maybe 2 to 3 minutes, get this down, start working on it. And then again, if you feel like sharing some of those, or if you want feedback on how to set them, or some other advice on, the types of goals you're setting, by all means, share those. You can raise your hand. You can, turn your camera and mic on, or put them in the chat. And I hear you, Nicole. I mean, it is confusing here, but what we're trying to make is, habits are the distinction of those habits, those things that you can do on a daily or weekly basis that get you to those big goals. So, next few minutes, by all means, we can give you some more feedback on that. But I'm going to give you, let's call it 3 minutes here to work on 5 to 10 habits that'll help you become that future self and align those with the three big goals that you set. All right, let's start coming back. And again, you can always come back to these. The purpose of today is to start getting going, giving you the framework and the system. Obviously, there's tons of other work and tips that we can go into, and we'll cover some of those today. But uh, anyone want to share or get any feedback on setting habits and maybe review some of those habits or even put in some of the habits that you put down? By all means, put them in the chat, or you can also raise your hand and turn your mic on if you want to get feedback on some of the habit setting. All right, anyone want to share their habits or get any feedback on? I'll give you just a minute if you want to put any of them in the chat.
I think that, like I said earlier, sometimes I get my habits mixed up with my um, goals. But I was able to write down 9 habits, like my daily prep and review that sometimes I'm not sure if I should do my daily prep in alignment with myself and how I am. My daily prep like the night before, or my daily prep like in the morning before I get started, like my review of what is on my calendar and what I am to do, just in case I need to make any switches. And the other thing is I like to get my quiet time, like prayer, reading Bible, things like that, the first hour. But I do go on my phone, like my devotion is on my phone. And I find myself, and then there's someone that I follow that's kind of like business, self-development, personal that I follow. And I listen to that for about 7 minutes. But then I find myself going over to the, scrolling. Maybe I see something that comes across like on the Facebook or checking a message or
Yep.
something. And
Hmm.
I just have to be that does take time. And I'll pull myself back out, but I might waste about 15 or 20 minutes before I pull myself out. I do the same thing at night
Yep.
sometimes. So
Yeah.
that's a challenge.
Yeah. I think you got, as you were talking, I think I got three, maybe more, things to hit on there. The first is your question about when to, um, and then thanks for sharing that, Nicole. So the first is when to set your priorities for the day, or when to you know make your list of things you want to do that day. And that's what I was talking about. That PM journal, that evening journal is so important. So there are three things to put in that. Your wins for the day. You want to close the day celebrating the progress you made. Sometimes for me, it's something as simple as, spending some time with my kids, or, getting something completed for work that I was supposed to get completed. Like, don't take those for granted. And sometimes it's something really big, but just your wins for the day. That way, you're also able to look back and see how much you accomplished that week or that month or that quarter when you go back through your journal and uh, and see everything you accomplished. So, maybe three things, maybe more, but just what are your wins for the day? So you want to journal your wins for the day, how you want to show up the next day, meaning it depends. I don't know why these balloons go up. There are all these, excuse me, all these reactions that come up depending on what I say or do. Excuse me. So anyway, how you want to show up the next day, meaning I want to show up excited, or I want to show up motivated, or, feeling blessed, or whatever it is, um, or who you want to be. And then lastly, your big three for the next day. What are your big three priorities? Um, like I have for, yesterday, I have a community solar bid review, 30-day course. We're doing a 30-day course right now. Film the videos. Third, sign and send a contract out for a project. So um, at the end of the day, I set those. And by the end of the day, I mean, like, within an hour before I go to sleep. And then I text those to my accountability partner. So the evening is great. And you know why the evening is great, Nicole? Because when your feet hit the floor in the morning, you already know what to do. You don't have to think about it. And also, while you're asleep, your subconscious works even while you're not actively thinking about it. Your brain may be working on thinking about those things that you have to do. So when you wake up in the morning, you know where to go. You know immediately what your priorities are for the day. And you might even start thinking about them a little bit, even during prayer or meditation or journaling. Now, a couple other things, and I might need you to come back and tell me a little bit as well. But um, you mentioned getting, on the phone. I want to address the phone. It's something like I don't know why that happens. Hold on, my camera just like has a mind of its own. There we go. Um, being on the phone, try not to be on the phone for the first hour you're awake and the last hour before you go to sleep. Now, you can make little exceptions, but like I said, I journal in my journal right here in a paper journal, my wins for the day, how I want to show up the next day, and my big three priorities for the next day. But um, I then text those to my accountability partner. But that's the only thing I do on the phone for the last hour before I go to sleep. So I set a rule that after 9 o'clock, other than texting my big three for the next day to my accountability partner, I'm not checking email, text, social media, etc. And then you also want that first hour of the day. Um, you really don't, if you make it your practice, to shut off an alarm or listen to some, motivational music, or maybe a guided meditation or a prayer from the person you follow, as some spiritual learning you do, that's great, but you can't get distracted. So it's best to set the rule to not be on the phone for the first hour of the day, if at all possible, because that way you set your intention for the day, not what people posted on social media or in text or email or whatever, because those are what guide your thoughts. There's a great quote, I don't have it in here, but it goes, your inputs determine your outlook, and your outlook determines your output, and your output determines your future. So your input, or what you're putting into your brain, determines your outlook. So that way, you're letting other people on social media determine your outlook and determine what you're thinking and absorbing. If you don't do that for the first hour of the day, then you and your higher power are determining your course for the day. And you're setting the life the way that you want it to be, getting towards your goals, staying inspired the way that you want to. Now, there's nothing wrong with consuming positive content, and whether that's personal, professional, spiritual, whatever it is, but try to not be on the phone or computer for the first hour of the day. So that's that's hitting on those. I think there was one more thing, and I forget what your last part of it. Did I hit those all, Nicole, or was there something else?
Yes, you hit them all. I think it was, let me see, I said I get up in the first thing in the morning and then I look at my goals. It was what I do in the morning, what versus what I do at night. I think you hit them all. I think you hit them
Okay.
all.
Yeah. Try to do the PM journal instead of having to, think about it, because that way, again, your subconscious works for you. Thomas Edison said, never go to sleep without making a demand of your subconscious, meaning make it work for you while you're asleep. And you did mention mixing up habits and goals. I hope this has made it a little bit clearer. Your goals are the bigger, longer term things that you're trying to accomplish. The daily habits are the things that help you be the person that you're meant to be today, the daily rituals that allow you to be that person and help you towards your goals. Um, and then Alicia said, what would be a habit for saving money? That's a big one. I've dealt with that and struggled with that in the past as well. Um, Setting a daily habit, you can either make it a weekly or a daily habit, but a great way around that you know, is allocating a certain percentage of a check or money that comes through. If it's direct deposit, you can, you can have some portion of direct deposit go directly into a savings account that, you don't touch. So that's one way to do it. Another great habit is just to transfer money every day. I've started doing this habit where I transfer money every day out of my checking account. So if I don't mind spending, $10 on something, why would I mind spending, putting $10 into savings? That way I'm not spending it and be like, hey, you know what? I'm not buying that crap that I don't need. Or, I'm not going to stop for food right now because I know there's stuff at home. I'm going to take that money. I'm going to transfer it to my savings right now on the app. So that's a great thing to do, is maybe just daily habit. Maybe it's just transferring 50 cents into your savings account each day, just to get in that daily habit of saving money instead of spending money. Like, look, you're going to say, I don't mind spending 50 cents on, a piece of candy at the checkout. So why do you mind spending, transferring 50 cents to your savings? That way you're rewarding yourself. Yeah. Any other questions on habits or feedback? All right. Now we're gonna, yeah, and I'm happy to answer them. I mean, feel free to raise your hand or type in the chat at any point and we'll get them answered. But now I want to cover something that came up earlier, and that is about overcoming setbacks and building resilience so that nothing can stop you. So, I mean, I've been through plenty of challenges, really tough challenges. I mean, I mentioned a health challenge earlier in my life, in my adult life. My wife getting hurt, having business failures. But those setbacks make you even better. There's a great quote I have on the wall that my assistant put up on the wall a couple of years ago that says, sometimes we have to be like a glow, or sorry, it's okay to be like a glow stick. Sometimes we have to break before we shine. And it's so true. There's nothing wrong with failing. But then you got to shine. You can't let it break you. You got to keep going. When you set aligned goals and build the habits to match, you're not just chasing results, you're becoming someone new. So that new person, I want you to be resilient and keep going. And that's why we set daily habits. And on the habit tracker, you have your goals. It's there to remind you, even when you fall off, to come back to it. And, like Nikita just said, a setback is a setup for a comeback. I love that. I don't know that I've quite heard that put that way. Um, but that's great. I love it. In April of 2022, I launched a new off-grid energy company called OhmGrid, which was in direct response to the new role that home took after COVID. So in starting that new company, we didn't have any customers yet, and we were burning through cash to support an expanding team and marketing budget. And by July, our accountant told me that we couldn't make it much longer without commitment of one of the investors that I was working hard to get to invest. And I knew the writing was on the wall. We weren't going to make it. And our team was, excited and well prepared. But by July of 22, we had dwindling investor interest, and I had to make the heartbreaking decision to let go of our team. Now, I took some time that October day. I went on a hike in the woods next to the lake behind my house, and I went way deep off the trails and into the woods until the trail stopped. And then I went further and kept going into the woods, and I waded through thick brush and thorns, and they started pulling at my pants, and I looked around and I didn't see a way to get through. But then I looked at the creek over the right, and I thought, well, I know that the creek gets back to the lake where the trails are. And I took my shoes off and I put my feet in the cold, shallow, rippling water. And as I walked through the creek, I thought, I thought, we always find a way through. When you take a risk and listen to your inner voice and pursue a path, it's not about whether you get to the end goal. There will always be twists and turns. It's not about the destination. It's about who you become in the process. When you set big, huge goals, even if you fall short, you end up much further ahead than you were before when you weren't setting those goals and making progress. So tracking your habits isn't a test. You're not competing against others. You're keeping track so that you can improve. And like I said before, some weeks won't be as strong as others. But if you want to live in bliss, then keep tracking and improving. I mentioned that, my wife had this surgery, her Achilles tendon tear surgery, and it's been a huge impact to our family. I mean, I've been going nonstop. My habits are way off because of it. I'm not able to get to sleep by when I want to because I'm having to, prep everyone for day camp and get kids off and all this stuff that my wife used to do, I do now. And, I know it's temporary. I mean, she's, healing every day and, we'll be able to walk in a couple months. But for now, I understand that my habits are way off. But you know what? I get back to them each day. I got back to working on my book. I got back to trying to get to bed closer to 10 and get up by 5 and meditating and journaling. And the first couple weeks, I mean, I was just exhausted. But my habits got me right back to where I know I need to be, right back to my routine. And those habits help me get back to a state of balance and bliss. So you're not always going to feel that balance. Either busy life takes you from your healthy habits like sleep, meditation, journaling, exercise, or something happens that gets in your mind, those negative recurring thoughts take over again. Now, it's not always perfect, but the more you work at it and trust your future self as your guide, the more you stick to your healthy habits and come back to your true self, no matter how busy you are and what negativity impacts your life, you're never too busy or too distracted to take 2 seconds to look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you. You're never too tired to put your hand on your heart as you fall asleep and say, I love you as you drift off to blissful sleep. That's caring for yourself. You got to keep going, even when you don't feel it. In fact, when you don't feel it is the perfect time to reset. When you fall off and you're beating yourself up about not hitting your goals or your routines, that's the perfect time to reset. That's what your habits are there for. When your computer isn't working properly, you get that dreaded, spinning wheel of death. You reboot. You just hit Control Alt Delete or you force a restart. When things aren't going well and you're off your game, reboot yourself. Go back and look at your habit tracker and begin again. This is your reboot. This brings you back to your true self. This brings you back to accelerating towards your big future. And once you head down that path and see the light that it brings you, you can't unsee it. You can't unsee the light in the mirror and all around you. Even when you've had bad days, those days get shorter and less frequent when you're living habitually inspired. So a tragedy may come up, or even just a bad day that knocks you off track. But get back to tracking your habits and you find that alignment within yourself again. That's what this is for. So we've gone from setting big, big goals to setting, for a big long-term vision for yourself, to setting annual goals, quarterly goals, and monthly goals. And then now we've gone to setting daily habits that get you to those goals. But we want to cement this transformation and invite continued momentum for yourself. So I want to know before we close, and we have just a little bit longer here, a little bit of reflection, a little bit of inspiration before we close. What's one insight that you've taken from today that is going to help you live as your true self? So again, just journal that. What's one insight from today that you're taking with you to start living as your true self? And again, you can put that in the chat. You can, just come off camera and, take off your mic and say that, whatever works. What's one insight you're taking today? And I'll give you just a minute to think about that. All right. Yeah, thank you for putting some of those in there. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Denise, start now. Start intentional steps with tracking in place and assure success. And, adding on top of that, aligning those habits with your long-term goals or your vision for yourself, keeps you excited and keeps you inspired. Nicole, keeping your annual, quarterly, monthly goals in iSpace daily, that is such a great one. Like I said, I've got three of them. I've got, one right next to my desk. I've got one in my bathroom in my office, and I've got one in my bathroom in my bedroom. So I see it each morning. So yeah, those are great. And, now it's time to move forward, and we're going to start just close here with what it takes to get moving forward and to stay inspired. And I love the quote by Rabindranath Tagore that says, "You can't cross the sea merely by standing and staring on the water." Similarly, you can't go into space by staring at the stars. And now it's time to put your spacesuit on and climb into the shuttle on the launch pad to skyrocket into space. And space, that destination, is your future. Staring at the stars is inspiring, but it won't make you an astronaut. It's time to launch. A lot of preparation goes into launching a spaceship to blast off into the celestial hemisphere. But the voyage only begins with the decision to climb aboard and fly through the atmosphere that stands between you and your destination. It's painful not being who you know you're meant to be. I know, I was there for years. It's painful wishing you could be that person you see in your mind, and it seems like it's either impossible or taking forever to get there. But it doesn't have to be painful. These are choices. This is your life to choose. You can either choose to go through the motions or live the life that you're meant to live. You can stay in the harbor and stare at the sea, or you can cross the ocean. You can stare at the stars, or you can launch yourself into space. You can stay at that same painful job or create the career you want. You can stare at the phone, or you can play with your kids. You can stay up late watching TV, or you can get up early and meditate. You can busy yourself on social media or email, or you can make real progress on your goal. You can be miserable in that relationship that you've outgrown, or you can find true love with the person that brings out the best in you. You can sing the song you're meant to sing, or you can keep it bottled inside. These are all choices. Some of those things I mentioned are tough choices, but they're all yours and yours alone to make. There's a great quote I think it's by Elizabeth Appel that says, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." Your life is only created by you, and we all create our own reality by our mindset and the choices we make. You can choose to live a life of happiness and bliss by deciding to do so. But staying tight in your bud is far more painful than the risk it will take for you to blossom. At any stage in life, this holds true. It's never too late to be who you are meant to be. Be honest with yourself. Are you living the life you're meant to live? Are you achieving the one thing that inspires you the most? If not, it's time to blossom. It's time to live life inspired. Remember that Mandela quote from earlier in the workshop. There's no passion in playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. You're capable of living an extraordinary life. We all are. But make it big. Do not play small. Do not settle. You know what you're capable of. You just need to get it out of your head, down on paper, and then take action every morning to get you closer to who you're capable of being. But it can't be small. You won't take any action if you have a small goal because it doesn't matter that much. A lot of people spend their days just accomplishing small tasks and going through a bunch of little actions, instead of taking big actions for significant blocks of time to get to seemingly impossible goals. The digital world is fast-paced, and it trains us to feel pretty busy, but not very productive. Just like Nicole was mentioning, getting stuck on Facebook or something for 15 or 20 minutes, and it makes you feel busy. But all that busyness keeps us from designing a bold vision for our lives and then planning out the journey and the small habits to get us there. Everyone knows the quote, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. The habits are those single steps that get you to that journey of your big, beautiful, bold vision for yourself. As Les Brown put it, most people fail in life not because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and hit. Don't aim low for these low targets accomplished by menial tasks. Aim high. You're meant to live an extraordinary life. If you invest in yourself and start what's recommended here today, you'll find true freedom and happiness. To care for others, you must care for yourself. You got to take some time to plan out your goals and implement your habits. So you can make excuses or you can awake with intention. Look in the mirror, say, I love you, and then implement the steps prescribed here today to return to your natural state and be the person you're meant to be. But don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until that still small voice inside is suppressed to a faint whisper and you don't hear it anymore. You know what you need to do. If you pause for a minute to listen, to truly listen, you'll hear your higher power and your inner voice calling to you to be a force for great good in the world, that force that you're meant to be. Listen to it, write it down, and get excited by it. So you'll be excited to take the first step and the next step and to keep on stepping until you're running into your future. See that light in the mirror every day and watch it glow and watch it grow. Life is meant to be lived and lived out loud. Life is meant to be enjoyed with enthusiasm. Love is to be shared and spread far and wide. The journey isn't always smooth, and roadblocks will always pop up unexpectedly. They do almost every day, but the tools provided today help make the journey smoother and get you around the roadblocks even faster. Those that love you will be there for you. I love you and will be there for you as you head out on this journey. I'm always happy to help guide you up the mountain as you climb to meet your future self. So as your feet hit the floor tomorrow morning, say to yourself, it's going to be an amazing day. And then walk into the bathroom, step in front of that mirror, lock eyes with yourself, and say, I love you. And then go spread that light out in the world. The world needs your light to shine brightly now more than ever. So as you awake with intention, with your goals set and your your habits aligned, put down the phone, turn off the negative news, and just listen to your still small voice inside. Listen to yourself and your higher power, and then write down what you hear. And then don't wait. Turn what you wrote down into action you can take today to be the person that you are meant to be, to live your life of love, happiness, and bliss. So, if this workshop woke something up in you, know that the Thrive in 25 course was created to keep you and that energy alive. So we do have a complete reset. We have this 8-week habit challenge coming up, and it's a great course where we go deep into those habits. I mean, things like sleep and diet and exercise and setting big goals and faith. And it's just a wonderful way that we go deep into setting the right habits and living the life of your dreams. And if you want to click that QR code, you can check it out if you take a picture of the QR code there. So if you're curious or even just intrigued, go check it out. And, we'll also send the link in a recap email following this workshop. You'll know if it's for you because you've already met that version of yourself that lives on the other side of it, that vision of yourself you imagine. But you don't have to wait until the course to start your habits. Because if you sign up for it today, I think we have a substantial discount on the course. I think it's even 50% off on the course if you sign up for it today. So thank you all so much for joining us. And remember, I love you and your true self, and I'm more than happy to stay here to answer any questions. So yeah, I think Chad just put it there. If you put the code HABITS, that's just if you register today, you can get 50% off the course. So we're going to make all these resources available to you. We're going to have recording of the course. We're going to provide the habit tracker as well as the goals sheet. So yeah, thank you, Nicole. Check it out. And by all means, let us know if you have any questions. I'm going to put my email in the chat here as well. I think you have it from calendar invites, but if you don't, you can reach us on the website or email me here at inspire at benparvey.com. And like Chad said there, if you enjoyed the course, please let us know. Give us some feedback. We definitely want to know what you think, what we can improve. And as I mentioned before, I'm happy to stay here and answer any questions you may have, anything about goals, worksheets, some of the habits you want to implement, etc. So thank you all so much for joining. That's the end of the workshop for this part, but Q&A, I'm more than happy to stay here if you have any questions or want some feedback on some of the things we talked about today.